Hi, and welcome to the Fulfilled Truth podcast, the podcast where I like to have uncomfortable conversations for a wealthier life. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Linda Holtz. She's a co-owner of M2RE, which stands for Married to Real Estate. So her and her husband run this company. You're also out of Texas, which is pretty cool. And the cool thing about you is that you came here via France to Chicago to Texas. So there's a lot of stuff that you have in there. So it's amazing. So welcome, Miss Linda. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's kind of cold today, so got a
I know.
blanket here and ready to go. It's Texas weather, right?
Exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, Texas has made me so weak when it comes to the weather.
That's well, you lived in Chicago, right? Wasn't that kind of cold?
It was so much colder. That's why I don't understand why I'm cold here. But
It's your
I
body's
guess
playing
you're
tricks
too
on
low.
you. So tell me a little bit about your company and how you and your husband decided to start this company. By the way, the name is really awesome, Married to Real Estate. So
Thank you.
just want to throw that in there.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So the funny thing, I like to joke that real estate was always like the third wheel in our relationship because I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the podcast. But my background is in property management, and funny enough, that's actually how I met my mother-in-law because she's
Oh,
also a property manager. So ever since I've met my husband, we've always been in that real estate realm, while dating, while being engaged, and eventually while being married. And so that's why we actually pivoted to commercial real estate 3 months after getting married.
oh,
So we were like, hey, we're newlyweds and we've been very committed to this whole investment journey. So let's just be married to real estate. And that's how the company started.
that's amazing. That's such a cool story because I love stories behind people's, their ideas and the names because there's always a little bit of truth and love, that they want to share in their name. So that's really, really cool. Now, one of the things that I like to talk about is the journey that people have taken. To me, we were discussing earlier, we've been connected virtually through different communities and also through LinkedIn. And from far away, I've seen your growth and your successes and your, different posts that you have. And it's really interesting. One of the things that I'm curious about, it's what inspired you to begin your journey towards this path of, let's say, financial independence.
Yes, that's a very good question because I actually, it really started a couple of years ago. And when I say a couple of years, that probably means 7, 8 years ago.
Okay.
But my point is that I was not born in it at all. I was not, it didn't come to me like in high school or in college or even early on in my 20s. It really, what happened was I started working in property management, and I always wanted to own something. Um, to give you a very brief background on my personal life, my grandparents always owned, but my parents never did. And so
Okay.
for me, home ownership was a proof that, like, hey, I have something that's mine, that cannot be taken away. And so I always wanted to own that, but I had never thought about investing until I decided, hey, I'm ready to buy. So now that I'm ready to buy, what am I going to buy?
Yes, that's a good point.
and and that's really where my investment journey started. And it kind of triggered, at the time I was on a, like, already starting thinking about self development. I was already reading a lot of books about being positive and developing your mind and your mindset without even knowing what it was, without even knowing what I was doing. I was just interested in general in self development books. But when I decided to get that path of real estate investing, it was like this black hole. It was like I was walking around and all of a sudden fell in it and never turned back. And so, really, when I decided that I wanted to own is when I found the idea of house hacking, and I never stopped from there.
Okay.
But yeah, the whole self development, developing your business, deciding to invest, that all kind of came together. But it was after just thinking, I just want to own where I live. That's all. That's how it started.
Okay, that's a cool journey. Now, a lot of people, you are an entrepreneur. Okay,
Yes.
you're a successful entrepreneur,
Oh, thank you.
and you are. And the thing is, a lot of people, think that you have to be successful. You have to be like a multi-billionaire and have yachts and helicopters and buildings and stuff like that. I'm not in that world, you know. I'm more of like, no, if you are able to just create a company, to me, that's a success
Yes,
because it's hard to do
it is.
what you're doing, you know. And as we were discussing earlier, I know a lot of people, I don't want to say that they brag about it, but they like to show off their successes,
Hmm.
which is, I think, is also a good thing, you know, because it gives us people who are in the business or
Hmm.
even starting out in this business an idea of where to go, you know. um, Now, what would you say, you know, was some mistakes or some things that you did at the beginning that you wish you're like, oh, I wish I would have known that. And when you go back in hindsight, right, because 2020 is beautiful, right? That you wish that you could not do and, you know, you could have done differently.
Yes. So it's very interesting because I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer that every experience that happens to you, good or bad, you're supposed to take a lesson from. And there's a lot of things that I'd say if I knew then what I know now, maybe I would have done things differently. But at the same time, I wouldn't have wanted to do things differently because I
Okay.
truly believe that everything that happened, this is what got me here. I mean, look at the name of my company, right? Like, for, for example, I met my husband when I was 20 years old, right? And it's like, okay, obviously I've had relationships before, but this one was the one like that made my business. And it's like everything that happened before happened for a reason, so that now I have a business. I lived in Houston before. I'm in Houston, Texas right now. But it wasn't until I came back with my husband and already working and investing in real estate that all of a sudden we met the right people, made the right connections, and now the business is where it's at. So it's all those things where it's like the good and the bad, everything. I don't know if you read the book, the I think it's The Secret to Positive Thinking by Aaron Kennard.
I have not, no.
But one thing that he always says, and I read that book in 2016, I still have the alarm on my phone because he says, like, be intentional about thinking that, put alarms on your phone if you have to. And he says, this is an amazing life. Everything conspires for my benefit. So every time things happen, me and my husband, we always say, you know what? Everything happens for our benefit. It always happens for our benefit. We may not know it, but it happens for our benefit. So if I could go back, I don't know that would change anything, right?
Okay,
Like
that's
of
good.
course, of course, when you're going through things, you're like, oh man, you know, I wish I didn't have like those days or whatnot. But it's like, no, that's what got you here. That's what gave you that idea. That's what introduced you to that person. All of those things is why now, like you mentioned, you have that success. Um, it doesn't mean that it's easy. Like you said, I'm a very positive person. I'm very bubbly. A lot of my photos, I'm always smiling. So people see me like that. But I will tell you like it is. I don't try to sugarcoat things, especially if you ask me. It, I'm not gonna come out and talk about the bad things up front. But if you ask me if you're interested in the true picture, I will give you the true picture. The three core values of our company are family, loyalty, and honesty because we want to be transparent. We want to say, hey, this is a great thing. Like in our case, for example, it's real estate. Real estate is a great wealth building tool, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. Being an
Okay.
entrepreneur, like you said, is amazing. It doesn't mean it's easy. I mean, when I'm go back home, all my friends and family are like, oh my gosh, you have a company in America, you own properties in America. It's like, yeah, but you don't know all the other stuff, right?
The behind the
Or
scenes
even,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. It's like, and even if you know because I shared, you don't know what it feels like until you're in those shoes. And so it's important to remind people it's great, but it's not great all the time, and that's okay, in my opinion.
So when you say that it's not great all the time, okay, what would be an example when you say that, you know, it's not great all the time? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, let me give you a very easy example. Building a company. Again, for me, I've always wanted to invest in real estate, and I've always been an entrepreneur. Like if there's one thing about me is that I've always been in sales. And when I was like in high school, not high school, middle school, sorry.
Hmm.
I would literally like sell those little bracelets that you like tie yourself,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like I had made little business cards that said like my pricing and stuff. I was like 12 years old, right?
Um.
And then as I grew older, I was always in sales. Then I tried to do Mary Kay Cosmetics, like all those things. I always had that entrepreneurial spirit of like, okay, one day I'll have a business that's mine. I just didn't know where it was going to take me. Um, but that being said, when I decided to transition from residential investing to commercial investing with my husband, we didn't realize, hey, if you start a business, that means you have to have a legal structure. That means you have to have the proper documents. That means you have to think about your branding. You have to have a website. You have to have business cards, and all of those things. They're not hard, but you have to think about them.
Right.
Like people may not realize, hey, if we have a business card and a website, are all the colors matching? Is our logo everywhere? Like, what is our target audience? How do we talk to them specifically? Do you use this word, that word? How about the SEO? How about the this? How about the that? I think it's all those things that people don't realize. Hey, no matter what business you open, right? Like if you want to open a laundromat tomorrow, of course you're gonna need washer dryers. But you also have to think about, what about my Google account so that I can be found on Google Maps, right? What about my
Right.
Yelp account? What about my phone number? Who am I gonna take for what provider am I gonna have for internet? Connecting water, like things like that, where it's like people don't realize, but it's all part of being a business owner.
That's really, I'm glad that you state that, because a lot of people think that you just go on Instagram, create an Instagram account and say, come and look at my Ferrari, you know?
Yes,
That's not how it is.
it's not.
Okay. So that's, I'm glad that you say that now. So the goal is usually, right, to be financially independent. And on your website, you mention a lot of the things like that, passive income, tax benefits and stuff like that. And you and your husband, right, you guys are, you mentioned a lot about the syndication, right, investing in syndications. Can you describe what that means?
Of course. So when we started investing, we were landlords, and it was great. It was great to feel like we own something for ourselves, but we're also building something bigger. And for me, because I was a property manager at the time, I was the one self-managing our units. So that part was great. But then that also means that whenever there's repairs, whenever there's maintenance, whenever there's like night calls, you're the one who has to handle all of that. And
Right.
so it's kind of like being an entrepreneur. People tell you real estate is great, but they don't tell you, but you have to be a landlord, right? And being a landlord is not always fun. And so for us, one of the big reasons why we switched to syndications is because we found out for ourselves and we want to teach others, you can have the benefit of real estate without being a landlord. It is possible. It is possible to own real estate without having to be on the hook for all of the financial aspect of it, without using your credit score, for example, without it like being to your name. And some people like that, and that's great. If you're willing to spend the time, or if you have the funds and the financials to have a property manager of your own, then that's a route you should take. Everybody's different. To me, that's the beauty of not only real estate but also America, in a very cliche way, is that there's a piece for everyone. It all depends on your personality and your goals. But for us, we wanted something a little different. We wanted more to scale the business side and less to be the ones who get the calls about tenants, toilets, and trash. And so that's why we love syndications, is because syndications basically, we find, sorry, a deal. We typically we buy apartment complexes. We find a deal, we manage it, but by manage it, what I mean is we oversee the property manager. And then we present that deal to passive investors who don't even have to do any of what we do. And all
Okay.
together, we all own it together. So we're not, we don't have to be the landlords, but we're also like co-owners basically. So, there's no one who's like on the hook if something happens or whatever. But typically we do non-recourse loans. So somebody has to sign on the loan. But if something happens with the property, the bank does not go after their personal assets or things like that. And of course, I'm giving like a very broad overview. If anybody like wants to know more, we can definitely go into details. But the bottom line is, you get all the benefits without being the one who's on the hook for everything, without being by yourself. I mean, being alone is another big thing that people don't talk about
Right.
enough when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's like it's lonely. It's lonely to always be the one who has to make the decision. It's lonely to always be the one who has to have the financial resources. And so that's what we love with syndications, that you don't necessarily have to have all that because it's a team effort.
I'm glad that you mentioned that part. It's, by the way, it's an awesome explanation of the syndication and the passive income, because I agree with you that I believe not so much just in America, but I believe in society, in the world, kids, right? They're taught, go to school, get an education, get in debt from the school, and go get a job.
Yes.
Nobody's really taught about what you said, the passive income, the investment. They all think that you can just go and invest in the stock market, which is not bad, not bad at
Yes.
all. It's also a way of passive income, right? But they're kind of taught into, they're stuck in that mentality of, you have to do a 401k or a 403b or the Roth IRA, or put your money in the CD accounts, and they don't realize that that is almost a way of like controlling you and stopping you from actually growing more, right?
Absolutely.
I've worked in healthcare and for 24 years, and I used to see a lot of patients right after they retire. They work 40, 50 years, 35 years, and then boom, they have the stroke,
Yes.
or they get hit by a car or something, and then like they can't enjoy their retirement,
Oh my God.
which is sad, right? And I love the fact that you're actually out there telling people like, no, stop. Here's something different. It's passive income, right? So how would you define passive income to all of us that want to learn about that?
Yes. Mailbox money.
Okay.
That's what I call it, right? And it doesn't mean that you don't have anything to do. I think that it's easy to call it passive income, but there's a big misrepresentation about how passive it really is. Because you still have to do your due diligence, right? If you decide to invest, and by the way, that's if you invest in anything. Nobody invests in stocks knowing nothing about stocks.
Correct.
Um, Nobody gets into like Bitcoin or like what's the word I'm looking for? Oil and gas.
Hmm.
Like, just randomly, like, oh, throw a dart at a map and be like, okay, that city, that's where I'm gonna invest in a whale without knowing anything about it, right? So it's the same with real estate. You have to understand what kind of deal are you getting into, who is the team, what are their resources, do your goals align with their goals, and do you trust their business plan, like what they're projecting to do. Now, what I love about passive income is that once you do that and you actually do place your funds somewhere with somebody that you like and trust, and they're going to take care of the property, then that's it. That's what I prefer about it, is that yes, you have to do some work. Yes, you have to do some due diligence, but it's all up front. And once you find a team that who you like, and by team I mean in syndications we call them the GP team, right? Like the
Okay.
operator. Once you found an operating team that you like, you can stick with them. Obviously, it depends on how many deals they close a year. If that's
Right.
not enough for you, you might have to like diversify a little bit. You should probably diversify anyway, right? Like never put all your eggs in the same basket.
Right.
But my point is, you don't need to know everything and you don't need to know everyone. You just need to pick and choose. Okay, here I like you, here I like your deal, here I like that. And then once it's enough, right? Like that's another beauty of being in charge of your own destiny, in my opinion, is we don't all have to be billionaires. I want to be a billionaire. But when I say that, I say it more from a visualization and law of affirmation standpoint than actually needing to be a billionaire. As long as I can take care of my family, as long as I'm healthy, as long as I can get to spend my days with who I want, when I want, where I want, to me, that's success. And if I could do that at 100K per year, then I would be more than happy to get 100K per year. Now we live in a society where you need a little bit more than that, but but the bottom line is, what does it allow you to do? And to me, that's the again the beauty of passive income, is like, as long as you can get to where it's enough for you, and you do your due diligence up front, then you just have to sit back and relax because it's enough for you.
So you are super bubbly and super positive, which I love, and you stated that from the beginning. And That is amazing. Which it is so good to hear that and to see that, because that personality is really addicting, right? To be around people like that, right? So
Thank you.
with the personality that you have in your business, how do you go and attract investors? People that you want to invest. How do you do that? Because somebody's got to be skeptical. That can be like, Linda Holtz cannot be this positive 24 hours, 7 days a week. So like, how would you talk to an investor and say, I got a great deal, this is what we're going to do? What do you look for in an investor?
Yeah, and it's funny you ask that, because so I was a property manager for almost 10 years, and I managed mostly condos and HOAs. So I used to say I get professionally yelled at. That's the job. And by
Okay.
everybody, by the way, by board of directors, by residents, anything. And so, and I was always a very big social butterfly. I always knew and understood the power of networking. I mean, back when I was still studying, I chose my business school based on that. I had all this chart. I'm kind of an Excel nerd, and I had all this chart about like, what do I like about this school? What do I like about that school? But for me, the big criteria was network. Like, which one? Where am I gonna like make the best connections, right? So when I was a property manager, I would always go to like events and galas and trade shows and things like that to try and meet new vendors. And then eventually, I would know a lot of them socially, and
Okay.
then would come the time where now we're about to work together, and I would have a conversation with them like, hey, you're about to see a different side of me.
Oh, really?
Because when it's
Okay.
about work, it's about work. And I don't play with work. I don't play with results. And it's like at the end of the day, I'm very positive, very happy, but I'm not scared of the tough conversations. I'm not scared to talk about the risk with investors. I'm not scared to show them the full picture, because to me, real estate is choices. I mean, passive income is choices. However you make your passive income. And I rephrase that because really it's money. Money is choices. People say, oh, you cannot love money. I don't love money. I love choices. I love to be able to be free and to decide what I want to do, again, with my days, with my network, with my family, with my friends, whatever. And so um and so to me, that's why I want to be able to provide that choice to the investor. That means they have to understand the whole picture. That means I'm never gonna, that's why one of our core values is transparency. It's because I'm never gonna tell you only the good. And it doesn't matter if it's like a little bit good and a little bit bad. I'm never gonna tell you half the story. I have to tell you the full story so that you decide, so that it's your choice, so that you coming on with your full heart. You're not just following me. I hope you like and trust me. I hope we have a good time together because you like my energy or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's beyond that. And I think that's why for me, I juggle that social aspect with also those conversations where it's like, okay, but this is it now. At the end of the day, it's about work, right? Like, I want to be your best friend, but we're not here right now to be best friends.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And now on the flip side of the coin, I want to understand you. I want to know who you are. I want to understand as a person, what's your favorite color? What does your family look like? Do you have pets? What do you like? What do you not like? Because the first core value that we have is family, and after that is loyalty. Because we always say we want your goals to become our goals. I can't do that if I don't know you. So yes, there's a big social aspect. Yes, we have to vibe together, but I'm still going to tell you the whole picture. And that's also why we have to vibe together, right? Because I cannot be scared or embarrassed or whatever to come tell you exactly what it is. When I was in sales, we always used to say people don't mind negatives, they just don't like surprises. And I'm big on that. I'm big on communication. So I have to be able to come to you, and for that I have to know you. But it
That
once I know you, it doesn't mean that I'll be scared to have those talks.
those that one sentence you just said, people don't like negatives, they don't like surprises.
Yeah.
You need to put that on a T-shirt or something, because that is an awesome logo, by the way.
Because it's all about communication, right? And
Yes,
things
yes.
will go wrong at some point. It's okay as long as we talk about it.
I love that. I love the honesty that you have, because it's an uncomfortable conversation, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that compassion to have that uncomfortable conversation with people. But as you stated, that's a core value that your company has, which is on honesty. It has to be out there. because you don't want to lie to your investors, right?
No.
Okay, so
And
now
one
that
thing, if I can touch on too, is
yes, please.
even if it's difficult or whatever you want to call it to have the conversation up front, think about all the time it'll save you down the road. Because the more you prepare people at the beginning, the more they understand, the more they're going willingly with all their heart, not to please you, the easier it will be to have those conversations when things go wrong, because it's like, well, you were committed on this with me, you understood the risk, you understood the rewards, you were in on it, so it's
Yeah,
okay. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, so, if you are scared of having those conversations, just think about how much smaller they are at the beginning than when you let it snowball.
Yes, that very smart. That's a very well stated. Now that you have, looking at this from a lens of an outsider, right?
Hmm.
Looking at Linda and her husband and M2RE company, and people see that you guys are successful, right? And I love how you stated that success can vary, right? Because it's funny
Hmm.
because I talked to my son about that. It's you can have let's say a housekeeper who makes $60,000 a year, and she can probably have more money saved in her bank than the guy that has $3 million and is spending $3 million a year
Exactly.
in expenses, but makes 2 million. I mean, they're negative 1 million, right?
Hmm.
And so it's all in the eye of the beholder type of thing. So talking about money and wealth and stuff like that, what would be a myth about money that you would like to debunk, that you might think is not true? What's a myth about money or wealth?
That's a good question. I feel like it's a good question because I feel like I have many. Like, for example, saying, "Oh, you cannot love money," that it's not a myth, but it's something that I don't like. I grew up, so I'm from France originally, right? So I grew up in a space where you don't talk about money, and also debt is a very bad thing. And I think that growing up, it kind of planted this seed inside of me that, like, well, how can we want money if we cannot talk about it? And if we told, like, hey, the second you're in debt, like, it doesn't work. Because, like you said, some people make a lot, but they spend a lot, right? Um, so, like, that's one first myth that I would say annoys me, is like, why is it so taboo? Why aren't we allowed to talk about where we are? Because how can we do better or go higher if we don't know where we're starting? And if we're not equipped with the proper truths. Another one is about debt. Like, another myth is that, like, all debt is bad. Well, no, it depends what kind. I mean, for me, I have paid very low interest ever my whole life because I know how to use the debt, right? I've always known how to navigate when I had a car loan, when I had mortgages, when I had, like, I don't know, when I bought a mattress, right? Like, for the first time. And it's like, well, I cannot, I'm in my mid 20s. I cannot do this big expense by myself. Okay, well, I have to have it on credit card. How do I not let that define me? How do I not let that ruin the next 10 years of my financial life? The other day, I saw a gentleman that I respect a lot and I follow on LinkedIn. He's in healthcare, he's a doctor. And so he made a post about how he was 300K in debt. And
Mm.
for me, I think I would stop breathing. Maybe it's because I come from a place where a college education is free, but I cannot fathom the number, and especially for education. But again, it depends what it's for. It depends how you use it. It depends how you use the tool. And so that's definitely another myth that I'm not okay with. And then the last one is it takes money to make money. I don't believe in that. I
Yeah, that's very common. A lot of people say that a lot, right? So
Yeah,
so tell me, why don't you believe that?
I think that for me it takes determination, and I want to say the right tools and connections to make money. As long as you determine to work hard, you have the discipline, you find the right strategy, and you give it your all. And if you know the right people, or you have the right tools, or ideally both, then it doesn't matter how much money you have today, because the sky is only the beginning if you have those two things, in my
That
opinion.
it's Very well stated. Again, you're just full of like one-liners. I love it. This is great. This is great. Okay, now we talked about debunking certain bits about you know wealth and stuff like that. How would you define true wealth for somebody that's that's listening, or that's somebody you might talk to, or maybe
Yeah.
just starting out? What is true wealth?
So that one is gonna sound cliche, but to me, true wealth is I'm healthy, my whole family's healthy, and we know that we love each other. I live very far from all my family and friends,
Right.
but it's like as long as I'm healthy where I am and you're healthy where you are, and we know that we love each other, that's wealth to me. Of course, we want more, but at the end of the day, why? Right? It's probably because society told us we want more.
Yeah.
But as long as we're healthy, and health also means mentally, right? So to me, wealth is being at peace, being happy with who you are, even if you're happy with who you are because you know where you're going. Like happy with where you are doesn't mean that you're satisfied with where you are. Like you can still want more, but having that peace of mind, having that, like living a stress-free life, as stress-free as can be, like no anxiety about how I'm going to do this or how I'm going to do that, or like, once you start having a family, like can I provide for them? As long as you can not have that, that's wealth to me. It doesn't matter the level of like financial means. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what you do. Like you were saying, there are people in this world who are seen as doing jobs that are not the most coveted, and
Right.
they're the happiest ever.
Hmm.
That's wealth to me. That like finding true happiness, true peace of mind in your own heart.
That's I love how you say that, because you have, just for the few minutes I talked to you, I can tell you have a pure heart, right?
Oh, thank
And
you.
you're the mindset of making sure that wealth is relevant, but not, wealth doesn't equals money, right?
Correct.
And I think a lot of people have that. They feel that if you're wealthy, you are rich, and rich because you have a lot of zeros in your bank account. But that's not true. And I love that
Yeah.
you stated that, because that's also my philosophy. You know, it's all about, I mean, if you want to get into the business of it, you can be wealthy and be in debt. And like, it's all about the net worth. To me, it's net worth, right?
Yes.
And how comfortable you are and all that stuff. That's to each his own, right? So if you want to make $2 million a year and spend $3 million a year and you're in debt over $1 million, okay, that's fine. That's your problem, right? That's your choice. Like you said, you're in America, and this is where you can make this happen, right? Um, you talked about finding wealth, finding the balances in life, and going out and learning different things, which is really really interesting. Now, when somebody is just starting out, okay, and they listen to you, and they watch you, and they look at your business, and they get into your website and stuff like that, and they're like, man, this lady's got it, or the
Do
she's
people
on it.
think that? Thank you.
If
I appreciate it.
if yeah, of course they do, because again, you're an entrepreneur, right? And to me, you are successful, right? um how What advice would you give to, let's say that, not necessarily starting out, right, but like an investment advice, right? You hear a lot of people saying, well, I can't get ahead because I'm stuck in a working at this certain job, and I can only make certain amount of money. And you mentioned how the doctor talked about being $300,000 in debt. I knew a doctor that was in debt $500,000. So that made me mad. Because it's like, that's a whole different conversation about universities charging too much money. So we're
Oh
not
my
even going to go
gosh.
down that
We won't
route.
even go there.
Let's not even go down that route. But it's so. Let's say, again, I can tell you're a very, very giving person, and I can tell that you probably teach as many people as you can. How do you teach them about investing? What do you tell them?
Well, I think that one of the most important advice that you can give someone is do something that's not gonna keep you up at night.
Okay.
So don't do things that are like, it's not, don't do illegal things. Don't do things that are not good for humanity. Don't do things that are going to ruin you financially. Don't do things that with people that you cannot trust. Like, do things that make you happy. Like, it, whatever it is, right? Again, everybody has different personalities, but I have a friend, for example, who focuses on conscious capitalism. I love it. Like, his all his projects are
That's
about,
John Lane.
yes,
Yes, of
John.
course. Oh, I know John. As soon as you said that, that's John.
And I love how John focuses on projects that have a meaning. That it, again, it's not just about money. Now, don't get me wrong. I love making money. Again, for me, money is choices, right? Like, I don't
Sure.
want anybody to think, oh, well, then that's fine. I'm just gonna go be homeless on the beach. I No, I would never do that. I think that you have to. I think you have to want a little bit more for yourself, and it's too easy to give up, to be like, oh well, it's not all about money, so I'm just gonna let it go. No, it's not about money, but money, it brings you other things, and it's about those other things. If you don't go for that, that's when you're a quitter. Like, again, I'm very happy and bubbly, but I will tell you if I cannot respect you because I think that you're a quitter, right?
Yeah.
And so and so I want people to understand, like, M2RE was created to bring financial success to people for other reasons, but that's where it starts. So the money is important. It's okay to talk about it. Again, I don't understand why it's so taboo in today's society. But that being said, don't make money doing things that don't make you happy. And I love when people like John do projects where it's like, yes, we're making money, like a lot of it. I don't know if I can curse, but
You
we're
could do
also,
whatever you want. It's okay.
I was gonna say a shit ton of it. But it's also good. It's like the cherry on top when you can do something that means something to someone else, and that you're helping a person. Um, I told you earlier, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, but
Yeah.
I'm also a big believer that if we all help one person, that's it. Because if we all do it, then it's a domino effect. And just because you help me doesn't mean I have to help you. But if you help me and I help the next person and then they help the next person, like, it all comes together. Yes, I hope I am working on helping dozens, hopefully hundreds of people one day. But as long as I do one, isn't that a life well lived, right? And it
Yes.
can be somebody in my family, it can be a friend, but it's okay if it's a total stranger. um, I have another friend who was posting recently how he got stopped in the street. He was also in property management for a while, and he got stopped in the street by a former resident. And the former resident literally stopped him and was like, "Hey, I remember you. You were nice to me once at the building."
Nice.
And that's
Nice.
all it takes, right? It's those little moments that we should all live for. And I think it's very important to remind ourselves of that when we go to invest. Yes, make money, but don't do it if it's gonna stop you from sleeping well at night. That's a big,
Okay.
big thing. A wise woman once told me, "You don't know how people sleep at night." And I hope you sleep well at night.
That's another one. Another one. See, you're full of them. So here's an uncomfortable question. Okay. So on the same vein of talking about teaching people and helping people out, the reality is your target audience are possibly accredited investors,
Yes.
and accredited investors are people who are making over $200,000 a year, or
Yeah.
as a couple 300,000, right? Or their net worth is over $1 million, not counting their home, right?
Yes.
So that's a very niche type of person, right? An accredited investor are people who are have certain comforts, right?
Hmm.
What do you tell somebody who doesn't have the accredited investor status? That person that you happen to see working at Taco Bell or on McDonald's, but you see that kid, right? Or that person. Not gonna have to be a kid, right? That person. You can like sense that drive, but you cannot say, "Hey, I got this awesome opportunity. We just need $100,000." They don't have $100,000, so it's an uncomfortable situation because as wonderful as you are and as successful as the company is, you cannot help that person because you cannot
Correct.
have them talk about passive income. So, what would you teach them? How can you help them out?
Yes. So it's funny because I had this conversation twice this week.
Beautiful. Tell me.
And what I told both of these boys, one of them was only 18. I think maybe even 17 because he told me he graduates high school this year.
Okay.
And I told them, find out what your skills are and capitalize on that. Now, I can tell you that in this world, the skills that are going to help you are all related to being able to sell, being able to like essentially sell. But what by selling, what I mean is relay an idea, sell an idea to somebody, sell yourself to somebody, sell a business or an opportunity or whatever. As long as you can do that, I think you'll be okay. But even if you don't have that, find out your skill, find out what you can bring to the world, and then go find people who need that. Because at the end of the day, this whole world is about value. We want to talk a lot about money, but there are companies like look at Apple. There are companies that give you a brand new product once a year that most people cannot afford, but they still buy it once a year. Like
Yes.
not only they buy it, but they buy it regularly. So it's not about price, it's about value. So find out that skill that will bring value to the world and then go give it to the rich and wealthy until you can learn from them. And I think that another thing that goes with that is self-educate. Self-educate as much as you can, because again, to bring that value, you have to be able to know something that other people don't. And the more you get in your tool belt, like the more information you can have, then the more value you can bring to more people, and that's what's going to get you there. So ask yourself, what am I good at? What do I like to do, by the way? Because the reason why I start with that is because once you know what that is, you're going to have to work hard. I'm a big proponent of work ethic will get you there. But do either what you know works, aka sales, or what you love and already have. Don't spend your time trying to learn skills that are not going to help. Like, for example, coding I think is a great skill. It's a great competence. At the end of the day, it brings value to somebody. But
Right.
if you hate looking at a screen, why would you learn that? Like what's the point? I hate when I go to a store and the cashier is the most negative, bummed out person ever. I'm like, why do you do a job where you have to talk to people all day? You're bumming all of us out. Go do something else. I'm like, I understand that sometimes you don't have a choice, but then at the same time, there are things where it's like, if you hate being here, why are you here? So find out what you're good at and then go bring that value to somebody who needs it. Ideally, somebody who is doing what you want to be doing, so that you can learn from them. And the more you learn, again, self-education, the more you learn, then the more value you can bring to others. And it's a snowball effect, for sure.
That's wonderfully stated. Now, I do have a final question because I want to respect your time because I know you're
Of course.
a very busy person. And if you realize you kind of answered this throughout, our conversation, but I'm going to post it. I'm going to post a question anyways, right? So,
Yes.
what is the one piece of advice that you would give to a person who's just starting out in business? And yes, it can be real estate. But what would be the one thing you would tell them? Say, okay, I see you're doing this. This is what you need to focus on.
Yeah. So if we're talking tip or advice, that would be what I just stated about find your one skill, or it can be multiple, by the way. If it's multiple, then good, right? You don't want to get shiny object syndrome. You don't want to get scatterbrain. You want to find your lane and go full expert on it. So that's what I would say in terms of like, this is my one advice. But I would also say, don't be scared of delayed gratification and working hard for it. When I first moved to America, my first job was door-to-door sales.
God.
And I did that for 2.5 years. And of course, I'm not doing that anymore, but it taught me so much because at the time, and I say I'm not doing that anymore because at the time I thought that I might go down that route of like eventually opening my own agency and like climbing the ranks that way, right? It didn't happen, but it doesn't mean that it was all for nothing because it taught me so much. It taught me so much about my own limits, my own work ethic, my own, like how to build my own attitude. I'm pretty sure that this is why I'm so bubbly and positive, is because I did that for 2.5 years. You have to be positive. You have to have a positive attitude to survive that. Because not only I did that, but just for context, I did that mostly in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Baltimore, and Philly.
Okay.
I didn't do that in like
Wow.
the Upper East Side and
No, no,
Orange
no.
County. and so um and so I think that there's something to be said about don't be scared of hard work, because even if you work hard on something that eventually you like completely leave and you go do something like entirely different, that's okay, because those skills, that mental grit that you developed is totally worth it. And the delayed gratification, stop wanting everything yesterday. Life is not Amazon. I think that Jeff Bezos has done a very good job at brainstorming us. And I love it, right? Like, funny story. Yesterday, I was literally looking for Christmas pajamas for me and my husband and our pets to send our Christmas card. Yesterday was December 18th. It's like I probably should have been doing that a month ago, because now it's like, oh my gosh, I want everything yesterday and it's not possible. And I found ways, but that's not life. In life, especially if you're young, you have to understand you might have to climb the ranks a little bit of your own life, by the way, not necessarily corporate America, but you might have to put a little bit of sweat equity and just wait for it. It's okay if it's not the first year. It's okay if it's not the first 5 years. I've been here 12 years and I just started my company a year ago. So take your time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Miss Linda.
Yes.
You are very inspiring. You have
Oh,
an
thank
awesome
you.
story. You're super successful. And I really want to thank you for spending the time to being in here with me in my little podcast here,
Oh, I
and
love it.
sharing all the nuggets of information. Really, really great information. So um, we are at the end, and thank you so much for everything. Okay, you
Thank
take care.
you. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.